Hi there, this is Beatrice Buckley from Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Amanda Kruger, and you are listening to This is Monster Mash.
You're listening to Moose's Monster Mash. Welcome, Horror Hounds, to another all-new episode of Moose's Monster Mash. I'm your host, Moose, and this is a different type of episode. I'm actually driving down the road right now with not just any guest. It's Hollywood's horror final boy, everyone's favorite scream queen, the very talented Mark Patton.
Hey there, how you doing? Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
So, for those listening, we're on our way to Omaha and the Omaha area for an event. We're going to screen Reunion from L2. We're going to Scream Queen. So that's why we're traveling.
We're on the road from Kansas City, which is where my family lives. And so we're having a road trip, which is kind of exciting, I think.
So, and you're kind of a tour guide when we're driving, because you have little tidbits about just about everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's so funny because I grew up in this, the little town that we just picked me up from is called Excelsior Springs, Missouri. And I went when I was like in grade school. I grew up there, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place. It's famous for its Hall of Waters and mineral baths and all that kind of stuff. And it was probably from the 1920s to the 1960s. It really was one of the most elegant places you could go, but you left Kansas City to go there. And then there were lots of bars and stuff like that, so you could get all spa'd up in the daytime and go out and have a drink at night. And then it kind of fell into disarray, and now it's just beautiful again. And I know some of you know I live in Mexico most of the time, but I'm going to take a little place in this old hometown just because it's so quiet and so beautiful, and it's a perfect place for me to, hub out of in the United States.
So, how did somebody from the little town we left end up in Hollywood, California?
Well, first I went to New York, and I did it on, I got on an airplane and I flew there. I had a great drama teacher, and her name was Mildred Fulton, and I didn't have great grades. My family home life was pretty awful. And when she realized I wasn't going to be able to cut going to these schools, she was trying to get me into theater schools. She was just like, you know what, go to New York. She gave me a couple of magazines which could have gotten her fired, and After Dark magazines. And she was like, go to New York, you'll be fine. You're going to work there. You have everything you need. And so, one-way plane ticket, $132. I flew to New York City, and I got off the plane and I followed the stewardess. I figured wherever she was going must be a nice place. And that's it. I got dumped into Times Square, and I was never afraid until I did get in a cab and asked the cab driver to take me to the Sheraton Hotel. And he said, which one? And I got scared then. And I saw the hotel. There was it was $87.50 a night, which was out of my budget, of course. So I found a hotel. It was $37.50 a week. And I bought 2 weeks, and I didn't realize all of the nice ladies in the hotel were prostitutes. They went out at nighttime in their short skirts and short meat jackets. But it was a perfect place for me. It was very safe. Everybody was really nice to me. And I got a job. I think my first job was cleaning apartments.
Not as a prostitute?
Not as a prostitute. I managed. Now, if I had it all to do over again, I would strap a American Express machine on my ass and go right around the world. I like the sex, and I'm a friendly person. I think I would have probably been pretty good at it, but I'm a Midwestern boy, so anyway, and then I had an agent very shortly after that, and I started making money making commercials, and then before you knew it, I was working, and I made my Broadway debut in a show called Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, which was a big deal. It was Cher, Karen Black, Sandy Dennis, Kathy Bates, myself, and Robert Altman was the director. And as soon as
star cast,
oh yeah, and as soon as we closed, we shot the film, and then I went to Cannes, and that was a New York Film Festival, Cannes, and that was really pretty much. I had a career at that point, so yeah, never looked back. I didn't come back for many years. I mean, I didn't come back to Kansas City for at least 4 years after I left. And I just loved my life there. I loved New York. I just thought it was amazing. An amazing place to be. For a kid like me, it was, I think I would have died had I stayed in this area. Somebody would. Maybe I would have got lucky and had a farm, but really probably would have ended up dead on some back road or an alcoholic.
Say if nothing else, died of boredom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not easily bored. I got to tell you, I'm one of those people who's like, I entertain myself a lot. I enjoy my own company, so you put me anywhere and I'm generally okay. But it was just like on a different, it was very difficult to be gay here, and in New York, it wasn't, it was just like anything that was a negative in Missouri was a positive in New York. My personality, the way I walked, the way I dressed, my personality was way open, that's the way people were there. And I fit right in, and I was a pretty boy, so that helped too, It's always nice to be a cutie, Doesn't last long, but it's nice when it's happening.
I know it's a problem I've had my whole life. Your younger days, you definitely were you had that like heartthrob vibe going.
Yeah, what's so funny with that is like that was my detriment, actually. I think, without being too egotistical, I am actually a really, really good actor, and looking like I did, acting was not such a big deal. Do you know what I mean? It's like if you were a less good actor, it was almost even better.
That's it. You could have been a model. I mean, you had so many avenues you could have taken.
Right, and it's like, but what I really wanted to do was, like, I look at it now with the movies that are coming out right now, like, I don't know if you know some of these, but like All of Us Strangers. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen that movie. That's the kind of movie I wanted to make, and that's the kind of work that I wanted to do. And I ended up on, which, like, I'm not complaining, but I ended up, like, on Hotel, like, beating up George Clooney. And, we would both sit and say, oh, I can't wait until I don't have to do this anymore. And, I had higher aspirations, and it really wasn't until I got much older that that my face fit my talent, as opposed to being like the nice boy next door who is, you're really pretty, but you don't really get to say very much. You don't get to do very much.
Yeah, you were the eye candy.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of like that. like the best brother in the world, or in the relief. And then as soon as I got, jumping around, but there's a guy named Carter Smith, and he directed The Ruins, and which is a really wonderful movie. And he also did his first short film was called Bug Crush, and it won Sundance.
Oh, wow.
First film. And which is misleading because he also was a very famous fashion photographer and was very wealthy. So from the fashion photography, so he could do his own movies and not care what anybody thought about them. And he directed this movie, Swallowed, that I'm in. And, it's like I'm unrecognizable. And I was so grateful that when I read the script, I just thought, oh my God, why would he think of me for this? This person is horrible. But it was the first time I was so grateful because I felt like I showed people what I actually had the capacity to do. I mean, I did that on stage a lot, but in the films, I never really felt like I got to put anything down that was indicative of what I felt was my talent. So,
well, and jumping around a little bit on my end, you kind of talk about that desire in your documentary screen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, where you didn't really get the chance to show your acting chops. You kind of got pigeonholed into one spot, and that was it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, if you had do-overs again, I would have never gone to California. I understood New York, and I was working there, but California's always that elusive thing for actors. Like, you can go and
it's the acting mecca.
Well, no, it's the money mecca.
Yeah,
I mean, you can go and you can get rich overnight, and it's like the thing is, I didn't understand, like, if you were on I always thought people were nice, and
it's the Midwestern in us.
Yeah, I think so. But I learned, pretty quickly that, like, when you're on a film set, there are all kinds of agents there, and they are really nice to you, and they want to sign you, lots of them. And the reason they want to sign you is because they have a client that looks just like you. So they sign you and then bury you. And, like, you sign you go to some creative artist or something like that, big agency, and you sign the contract, and you're so excited because you're on the way to the big time, and then nobody ever hears from you again because they have Brad Pitt, or they have, and if you look like Brad Pitt, they're not interested in you being out there competing. So I kind of learned those. Luckily, I had a decent manager, and I learned those lessons pretty quickly, like not to talk to people, not to engage, really, more than anything else, and be very private. I also sort of felt for the illusion of everybody being rich and successful, and I didn't realize, I had the money that I made working, and I wasn't very rich, and it seemed like everybody around me was just had so much money and was so successful. I didn't realize it was all on credit cards and, make-believe for most
all rich on paper.
Yeah, they have the wherewithal to pretend to be wealthy. And I learned that lesson too late, I think. Because it really doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's like the people that were most successful that I know stayed right out of that world, and stayed as far away from it as they possibly could. Because it is toxic. Yeah. And then there are a lot of trust fund babies out there too. Like, mom and dad are paying all the bills, and you don't have to worry about getting a job. If you get a job, it's great. And if you don't, well, your bills are still paid. So that wasn't my story. So
Well, let's switch over to the double-edged sword of your life, the Elm Street 2. And I do call it the double-edged sword because like it threw you into like horror stardom, but as you later talk about again in your documentary, it kind of ruined your career in a sense.
Yeah,
so it's the good and the bad, I guess.
Yeah, but it's like I've had plenty of time to reflect on this now. I loved Elm Street. I mean, I loved doing it. I was so excited when I got it. It was a really big deal to me. And I hadn't seen the original. I had auditioned and screen tested for the original with Heather. And then I didn't get it. And then I never thought about it again. And then I got the second one. So I saw it. They showed it for me at midnight at Grauman's Chinese Theater, me and my friend Mark. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into here? But I was thrilled. And I always say this, it's like all my friends were like, oh my God, I would never do a horror film. And I was like, well, you're lucky because nobody's asking you. They asked me.
Right.
And I was happy about it. Now, at that time, horror sequels were kind of like, they were like about 2 or 3 steps above porn. It's just like if you were legitimate, you didn't do it. But I thought it was a great opportunity to see if I could carry a movie, which is a big deal. It's not everybody can carry the full weight of like 90 minutes in a theater. You get bored with them pretty quickly. And, but that was, for me, it was good and it really wasn't until later that the gay stuff started. And if I would have had one person, one good mentor around me that wasn't afraid to talk to me, I would have never left show business. Because it wasn't until later that I looked on the internet and every guy's a fag. Every guy is a fag. George Clooney's a fag. Brad Pitt's a fag. And the girls are all dogs. Like, I wouldn't fuck this girl if you paid me, and she's like one of the biggest movie stars in the world. And it was then that I realized, oh, those are just like 14-year-old boys, or those are trolls. Yeah. But I didn't know that. And it scared me so much that I ran, and, people have lived through much worse in Hollywood than I lived through and succeeded. And so I just got afraid and I ran away. And now that's what Scream Queen taught me. Mm-hmm. But there still was a lot of horrible things that transpired in regard to that movie. But generally they transpired just a little later. Like David Chaskin, who is, when you see the documentary, is one of the bullies in my life. He was just a compulsive liar. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. There's something, really, honestly, there's something not right with that man. And the person who's the most disliked by audiences, because we play this movie all over the world now, is Jack Shoulder, the director of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And he just sort of comes off as everybody's dad that is negative and, just insists on you not having a feeling. It's like if I felt something, he'd say, shut up, it's not true. And that's a horrible thing for a director, So it was, but ultimately in the end, also, Nightmare on Elm Street has been. Well, here we are talking, and it's 40 years later.
Yeah.
And I just was at Warner Brothers where I was. They started a new LGBTQ streaming platform, and the very first film that they offer is Scream Queens, My Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I feel like it all worked out the way it was supposed to. I had, as you know, I had some issues that were, from the in the 1980s, the AIDS situation. I could have never done that in public.
No.
It would have been just way too humiliating for me. So I was sort of protected, It's like I had enough fame to pop back in if I want to, but I was gone in the sense of, I went through a number of years that were just really ugly, as did most gay guys. I mean, it's like I lost so many friends, so much.
So as opposed to like Freddie Mercury, you didn't have to do it in front of everybody, in front of the tabloid.
Well, exactly. Freddie actually lived on the corner of where I lived in New York. And I used to see him he would come into the local gay bar, and he would sit in the corner, and he was very sick at this time. And nobody bothered him. No, not one person in that bar bothered him. But he, with his black nails and like sort of a black shawl, and I think it was the only place that he could find any peace, because my lover boyfriend was tagged by the National Enquirer, and it was pretty hideous. They went through the trash and took pictures of him in the hospital, and hunted us all down, and just like a lot of shame. Beautiful Tim, ugly now, and it was a sad time, and I really am grateful that I didn't go through it that I wasn't more famous than I was.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. If I had been more famous, there would be no getting away from it. And then I wouldn't be able to come back and tell the story now to people who actually need to hear the story. It's like you need to witness to that story because it could all happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not, and I just remind young people that all the fantastic things that have happened now for us, for the other people, I like to call us the other people. All of these things that have happened that have made for freedom, well, they're all up for grabs again. And I just want to remind you that, this stuff was fought for. It wasn't just handed to anybody. And you need to be able to, with not to get terribly political, but like the thing that Roe v. Wade is hung on when they overturn that, the rest of the civil rights in the country are hung on that same issue. And Clarence Thomas is on the record of saying he's going after gay rights next, gay marriage. And, they don't want to overturn gay marriage because those fags will burn the country down. And I've watched it happen before. And so hopefully they just leave us alone. They'd be really smart to just leave us alone. I mean, to allow people to marry, have children, and then come back, a decade later and say, "Oh,
thanks."
You're not married anymore, and your children aren't your children," and that is cruel, and it's not what we do. I mean, like once you get a law, once you get once something belongs to you, it belongs to you forever in the way our Constitution works. So anyway, so I'm back here mouthing off, and trying to tell young people and old people and everybody, keep your eyes open. There are a lot of skanky people out there who, for some reason, are very interested in what you do in the bedroom. I don't know why.
It's weird.
It is. It's really great. My favorite is like this Johnson, the Speaker of the House now. You have to realize, like, he's the third person away from being president of the United States. Like, and he and his son have a pact where they get to check each other's computers to make sure they aren't going on porn. And he has no credit card because he doesn't take numbers. Like, in Revelations, you're not supposed to take a number, and I guess credit cards are the mark of the beast for him. That's who's running our government right now. It's a little frightening. So anyway, but everything's going to work out. I have a great faith. And anyway, I got off topic, so you can cut this out if you need to.
Essentially moved into a real life horror story is where we've landed. So.
Oh, absolutely. If you have any, like what we're moving through right now, we're on the road here, and everything is so beautiful and so green, and it's so rich.
Until it gets dark, and it's a little creepy out here.
Huh?
It's until it gets dark, and it's a little creepy out here.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's living in the country. But what I'm saying is, there's so much wealth. There's so much everything. And, I lived part-time in Mexico. Well, I've lived full-time in Mexico for 20 years. And it's very different, and it's a very different life. It's a different world. And the people, I have to be really honest with you, are really, by and large, they're very happy. And, but there's so much land to be taken care of out here, and people can't hire anybody to, pick their fruit. And so we'll see what happens. I have faith it'll all work out good, though.
Like you said, you lived full time in Mexico for 20 years, and you managed to, on your, willingly fade into obscurity.
Yeah.
And the only thing that brought you back out into the public was the documentary about Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, Never Sleep Again.
And and again, listeners, if you watch the documentary or if you haven't, he talks about all this in Scream Queen. But I was curious, what brought Scream Queen about? What made you decide you wanted to make that documentary?
Well, because they found me, I guess I was very hard to find. And although I will say that when Freddy vs. Jason came out, they had me in the title, right? And it was shot, cut, ready to be delivered to the theater, but they didn't have my signature on a contract. And they found me real fast for that. Because I lived across the street from New Line. I mean, that's where my mailing address was, across the street from New Line Cinema. And, my first residual check from that was $35,000. But they were going to try to slide it through like I wasn't there. And the lawyers were like, you got to have his signature. So they found me that quick when they needed me. But anyway, Heather was one of the producers of Never Sleep Again. And so they found me, but they found me right at the end of their filming, 2 days before they were shooting. And they said, well, we want to, I was in Mexico. They said, we want to bring you to Los Angeles and for you to do this documentary. Would you do it? And I said, sure, but I am only going to do it under the auspices of I get to say. I'm not just going to come back and tell the same old story. I'm going to tell you what happened to me. And they were like, oh, no, that's what we want. Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at Never Sleep Again, they go really in depth with all the movies. Mm-hmm. Because it's 9 hours long. But Nightmare on Elm Street's one big dick joke. It's just a dick joke.
Yeah.
And all the guys who are really talented craftspeople and stuff are all going, I didn't know. And it was kind of embarrassing. I mean, Joel Soissons, who's was one of the line producers, and I just loved him to death. Their office was in the middle of West Hollywood. Like they could not have not known what this movie appeared to be. And none of them could own it. They would it was almost like it was like a stink, and it had to be on somebody else, and I was, actually I was kind of offended by it. And I was like, okay, well, that's what you think. And I got invited at that point to go on the circuit and Comic-Cons and all that kind of stuff to sign autographs. And when I first started going to those, my first one was in Amsterdam. Me and Alex Vincent in Amsterdam at a Star Wars convention, if you can imagine. It's pretty nightmarish. But anyway, so I started getting invited to all these things like Comic-Cons and so on and so forth. And I would go, and people were kind of weird. They were like in one or two camps. They would be like, avoid me. Like a lot of men didn't want my autograph. They'd get Kim's autograph, but they wouldn't get mine. And then I'd have a different group of people who would come up and say, hi, I'm Rainbow. And I'd be like, what? And they're like, I'm a rainbow person. And I was like, oh, you're gay. My God. And I realized how homophobic the conventions were at that time, Well, trust me, go to a convention now, kids. It's not homophobic. And I really decided I thought, if people are going to pay me money for my autograph, and I'm going to take their money, then I'm going to give them a good show. And I decided that I had received a platform without sounding like messianic or anything, but I thought, I've got this platform, this is what I'm going to do with it. The first year I'm going to talk about bullying, because from the look of this crowd, most of these people were bullied. And that really worked. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, there were not 100 people in my Q&A, there were 1,000. And then I talked about homophobia, and a lot of tears shed over that year from people who it was just amazing. We would do like a Q&A, and then the people who didn't come to it would like walk over to my table going, what is going on? All these people are crying, and but it was very honest and very to the point. And then the third year I talked about HIV and how HIV is transferred and who has it and who doesn't and all that kind of stuff. Big hit. And we decided to like make a movie of this, and the conventions changed. Like now I don't think anybody, if you came on my site and said something really nasty to me, you would be dead within 5 minutes. I mean, I wouldn't even be able to read it before my posse of people who care for me would have taken you off the internet. And that's a big difference from being called cocksucker.
Yeah.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that, but, it's like nobody likes to hear it. So, that was it. I mean, the whole thing was like, here I'm doing this. I'm somewhat of a preacher, so we might as well correct the record, and that's what we did. And I think we did a really good job of it. At least people tell me we did.
Yeah, it's a very captivating story. And it's shot well, and technically it's a great film.
Oh, isn't it beautiful? Yeah, except for me and I said to Tyler last week in Los Angeles, I was like, I don't have any vanity, because I didn't complain once when he would shoot me from the floor, I look like a hag in a lot of it, but it works. It works with what we're talking about. It's like, it's not a glamour shot. We're not doing a glamour shot.
It's raw. It's real.
Right. So happy with that. The thing that's very cool about Scream Queen is it's a hit all over the world. And like the first time I saw it in a foreign language was, of course, in Mexico, and it was subtitled and huge at the Diana Theater was, 700 people. When you come out at the end, you expect people to applaud for you because they're just being nice. And I came out at the end of that one, and it was dead silence, just absolute dead silence. And I thought, well, maybe they didn't understand the subtitles or whatever. And then I saw they were all crying. The entire audience was crying. And then the applause started. But, Mexico's a matriarchal society and people don't come out of the closet. Mm-hmm. Now they do, but it's really powerful. And in Brazil and Spain, the Latin American countries very especially, but I've been everywhere, Germany, England, across the EU, and the reaction is the same everywhere. They laugh at the same places, they cry at the same places. And
human emotion is universal.
It is. It's like I think it is as long as you're being honest. Mm-hmm. And honesty is the key to the whole. Like I used to think, like I lived in a world of secrets for a while, like most young people do. And then I realized one day, as I started to tell my story, that you can't really gossip about me, because if you hear something, generally it came from me. I'm the one that put it out in the world. It wasn't like something somebody discovered about me. It's like I'm very straightforward about what my life is, whether that's, I'm poor, rich, sick, whatever. I found a freedom in living that way that's just, I highly recommend it to any of you who are in the closet or in whatever your closet is, whether it's you're pretending to be rich or you're pretending that mom and dad are really nice people when they're crazy motherfuckers, whatever. Honesty really sets you free, because there's somebody else that's got the same story as you, and you can learn something from them and be happy, I think, I don't know. But I'm really excited. I've gone off on this tangent. I'm like very serious. But I'm very excited to be doing what we're doing this weekend, which should be. It's not even really the weekend, is it? It's Friday and Saturday.
It's the business weekend.
It's the business weekend. Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend. It's something like we talked before doing this, something I wanted to do for a while. And, Friday night, we're showing Reunion from Hell 2, which we'll talk about shortly, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And there's going to be, drag performances, and we're raising money for Nebraska AIDS Project. And Saturday night, we're showing Scream Queen, geez, can't talk, and Reunion from Hell 2, and we're going to raise money for Out Nebraska.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's going to be cool.
And, it's... a lot of this started with, I wanted to do something with the Nebraska AIDS Project for a while and couldn't figure out a way to mesh it up. And then Hayden and I became friends through Reunion from Hell. And just everything lined up perfectly, and we were able to get you up here for this, which just made it 1,000 times better. Because I've been trying to get you on the show now for almost 5 years, and I had to drive down to Kansas City and kidnap you to do it.
Oh my gosh, so, yeah, well, here we are. We're on our way.
Now, Reunion from Hell 2, because since Scream Queen and coming, back into the limelight, you've kind of had this resurgence, and you're doing indie films. You're back into acting on screen. You're doing all this. How did Reunion from Hell 2 come about for you?
How did what then?
How did Reunion from Hell 2 come about for you?
Actually, Lisa Wilcox asked me to do it. And Lisa and I are friends. And then I found out that Danny was doing it. And so it just seemed like, okay. I mean, I'm very open to like, I'm very open to participating in like young people stuff or new people stuff, because like probably half of Scream Queen was done in kind, right? We spent about $300,000, and the rest of it was, people giving up their time, or giving us a really low rate, except for the lawyers. And
of course,
yeah. But actually, our lawyer did give us a break too, but it didn't feel like a break when he gave it to us. So when somebody offers me something, I want to say yes. I don't say yes now as much as I did at one time. And I didn't really know anything about this movie. Like I told you before, I haven't seen it yet. So
I'm looking forward to watching you watch it.
You'll be. And a few years ago, I went into deciding that if I was going to do something, that I was going to try something hard. Like my real breakthrough was Swallowed. And I play a part that I never dreamed that I would be able to pull off. And and I did pull it off. It's funny, like you go on the internet now and it's like people like, I really got extraordinary reviews for Swallowed. And the kind of reviews that you really want. And then every once in a while you come across one that is just so hateful.
Yeah.
That you're like, oh my God. But they don't mean anything anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like the things that, that I do, like what I tried to do on this film of Hayden's is, it was a bold choice of how I was going to play this kid. And it was like, it could have been like a really nothing part, to be honest with you. It's like I could have just been like said yes.
So you could have just came in and been like the roaming reporter.
Right. And just like whatever. And I thought, well, okay, I'm going to go. And I checked it out. I mean, I like the first couple of scenes that I did. Everybody laughed hysterically. The whole crew would laugh and everything. But I stopped and asked the director, is this okay? Because I do that sometimes, because especially if you're working with younger people who have, who like look up to you or whatever, they won't stop you. And I just said, is this okay for you guys? I mean, does this fit with the way you see the movie? And they're like, oh yes, okay. And then I feel free to just go ahead and do whatever I want to do. So I ended up having fun with it. It was like, I always, in the back of my mind, I was Ryan Seacrest on, some hallucinogenic drug or something.
Oh, I could totally see that.
And it was just like, it was fun. And it's like, and it's sort of like if you watch RuPaul's Drag Race, which I don't, but I do know, it's like Vanjie. It's like it sort of came that way, like Vanjie, and that voice started coming out, and it was just so much fun. And I would be brave enough to try that in another movie now. Do you know what I mean? Like try to go beyond, because I'm at that age where I could be a character actor if I wanted to be.
Yeah, so you nailed comedy. I mean, what has very serious horror moments. Your character comes in and just lightens the mood. I mean, just instant laughs.
Well, that's good. I can't wait to see how the movie is edited, because it can be like that. It can almost be like a comedy jump scare.
Yeah,
where you're like all ready for something, and then bang, you've got that funny thing happens until the funny thing doesn't happen anymore. You know,
well, and like, so I knew you were going to be in the movie, and until that very first scene that you're in, obviously, much like the people on set, no clue how you were going to play this character.
Right.
And, it comes up on screen, it's you turn around, you're like right in their face, and I lost it.
Oh, good.
I mean, just belly laugh. It was just hilarious, and that set the tone for the rest of it. It was amazing.
Oh, good. Well, I can't wait to see it. I might only watch a few minutes. It's hard for me to watch myself anymore. It was the same way with Swallowed. It's like, Carter Smith is a pretty up-and-coming director. He's got a style. His things are very in your face, and he sent me the script, and I just thought, I called him and I said, you know what, I don't know why you sent me this, because there's nothing for me. I mean, I knew that Jenna Malone was going to do the girl part, and I was like, well, I'm too old for these boys. That's where vanity comes in. And he was like, oh no, I wrote Rich for you. And I was like, what part of me do you see in this piece of shit? And he goes, well, you'd forget, I saw you in Scream Queen, right? So I know what you look like. And I argued with them literally until the camera came on about there was no guarantee that I was going to do this. And it was shot in Maine in a bear reserve. It's like hot mosquitoes, and we blacked out a cabin, so it was like 140 degrees in there. And but I had told the costume designer Danny exactly what I wanted. I was very specific about the clothes I wanted and the kind of boots I wanted to wear and all that kind of stuff. And it was all there, and then I slipped it on, and they put a gun in my hand. And I felt like the Holy Ghost of acting had descended upon me, and I was possessed because I became that person. And it was so much fun. It was hard, but it was fun. I mean, it's like the gun never left my hand the entire time. And I'm like, you motherfucker this and you motherfucker that, and take your clothes off. And, like one of the boys is so beautiful, and I take his clothes away from him almost immediately. And, give him a bath and tell him how I won't abuse him. And it's just, it's just a very tense movie that is really, and it's like, well, this is what the reviews say. It's a really intense movie that the heart comes from me, because he doesn't think that he's doing anything bad to these boys. Do you know what I mean? He's going to kill them.
Yeah.
He's a drug dealer. But he tries to relate to them like, people abused him, so he would never abuse anybody. Meanwhile, he's got a kid in the bathtub with his hands between his legs, and a gun to his head. But that's how out of touch with everything that he is. I highly suggest that you can rent it almost anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's streaming everywhere now. Go watch it. It's like, I don't come in until the last half of the movie. But when I do come in, I come in with a bang. So,
Well, how
I'm not your typical Mark in it, and I love it. It was so much fun.
So, before we wrap this up, I'm curious, if you could go back, do it all again, and pick a dream role to play, what would your dream role on screen be?
Originally, it would have been, until the last 3 or 4 years, it would have been the talented Mr. Ripley.
Ooh.
The part that Matt Damon played.
Yeah.
Liked that a lot. That was like really in my wheelhouse. But since Call Me By Your Name, Timothée Chalamet, the last 5 years for gay actors have been like just golden. I mean, there's so much beautiful material out there that you don't have to be gay to enjoy, but I mean, it's like out gay actors playing gay people in gay movies. And it's, I would have loved to have been in Fellow Travelers. Love that. It's a 10-part miniseries. Watch it if you can. It's Matt Bowman. What we talked about before, All Us Strangers. Even things like Red, White, and Blue, the rom-com about the King of England and the... Oh my God, it's so stupid, but it's so cute. And it's like, if everybody... My nieces just like are crazy for it. Most of the fans are girls, but I would have given anything to see a movie like that when I was 14 years old. Just like anything. So now, a boy stood up. We were at somewhere, and in the Q&A, a young guy in the back stood up, and he said, "I just want you to know that you and Timothy Chalamet, same person, same energy. If you would have been born today, you would be just as big a star as he is."
Oh, wow.
And I started to cry. Because I believed that too. That if the time had met in the appropriate way, but it wasn't. I was there laying, without being grandiose, I was there laying the bricks down so that those boys could walk through what they were going to walk through and make those movies now. And I will say that when I meet most of them, they are very complimentary and very kind, and they know exactly who I am. And that makes me feel really good.
So where can listeners follow you on social media?
Just Google Mark Patton, and that does it. I'm actually getting ready to. I have an Instagram account that I really love, and but I'm going to do the analytic on it because I stay somewhere around 16,000, 17,000 people. And I could bop that up to like very easily a couple of 100,000. And it's good. It's a good reach. Now, the way I do it now, I like it because I can actually talk to everybody. You know, if you write me at Mark Patton, NOES2, at Gmail or Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things, I'm going to talk to you. You know, I mean, I'm going to answer your question. I will, at the very, very least, acknowledge that I got your letter or your note or your like. But if it's different, I have developed some really wonderful relationships with people, and but it's time to up the game just a little bit. So I think I'll still be the same, but you can tell who's for real and who's just, you know, when you need to reach out to somebody, it's obvious. So, so anyway, I don't want to say anything about like suicides and those kind of things because I was overwhelmed with that kind of stuff at the beginning. And, you know, I have organizations that I pass those people too, you know, because like when a 19-year-old kid calls you and says something, I'm not equipped to deal with it. I'm not 19 anymore, you know, I'm an old man.
Yeah.
So I try to get them towards their own age group, which is, you know, my niece is very helpful with that. And so anyway, so call me. I love you all. Come and see me at the conventions. That's always fun. If you're in London, next week I'll be at London Film and Comic Con, and that'll be fun. And then I come back here, and I have a real Mad Monster. I have a pretty full schedule coming up. So come and see me.
The World Traveler. I will post those links in the episode description. And listeners, you can find me and other great podcasters over at electronicmediacollective.com. Or if you just want me, on YouTube and X at Moose Media Inc. or on Facebook at Moose's Monster Mash. Real easy to find. Mark, This has been a fun road trip, but we should probably focus
thank
more
you.
on the
Yeah,
road now.
we forgot to tell them about all the land that was passing us by.
Oh, look, there's a hill and tree.
Exactly. It's all green and
it's not flooded yet.
yeah. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah, we might need a boat to come back.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Have you come back on sometime. We might not have to do the road trip again, but
yes.
We'll sit down and talk again sometime.
Well, we're old friends now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Until next time, Horror Hounds, mash on.
This has been Moose's Monster Mash. Come back for more chills and thrills if you dare.